morning, Sub2ers. This morning, I am here with Mr. William Salas. William just closed on his first Sub2 deal, and he agreed to come in here and share that with us this morning, give us some details, give all of you newbies that are still in search of that first deal, the realization it's not a unicorn. And William and I were talking about this before we got on here, about how a lot of people think it's a unicorn. It's really not. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together and getting things figured out. So, and he's done that. He's been investing. Well, you know what? I'm not going to tell his story. I'm just going to let him do it. William, thanks so much for being here with us on Go Talk this morning. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, William. William meets William here, right?
That's correct. It is the William show this morning. That's true.
So
William, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I am down here in Miami, Florida, primarily looking for property in Broward and Miami. So South Florida, West Palm Beach potentially, but I try to keep my drives under 45 minutes if I can. And I like seeing the real estate. But yeah, I've been investing for about, I would say I started really kind of learning and deep diving into it in 2017. Started taking action on what I was learning in late 17 going into 2018. And in actuality, it took me almost 14 to 15 months to do my first deal. It took me a long time. In that meantime, I was spending money, doing marketing, trying to talk to sellers, having little wins along the way, my first contract, my first appointment, little things like that. But it took me a good amount of time to do my first deal. And I had a decent amount of money invested previous to real estate. And I still do it now, but I was doing it full time for years, was making music, DJing and producing. And that took me years before anyone cared, I guess, before I made any money, before anything like any sort of real success with my music. It took me a long time. So for me, I kind of had that reference going into real estate, knowing that it wasn't going to happen overnight, not expecting it to. But yeah, so 4 years, 3 years actually making money, I guess, doing deals. It's me and my partner, Mike, primarily. We wholesale and fix and flip, I would say 80% of the time. It's been a mindset shift to a more long-term buy and hold approach. When the money's staring you in the face, especially in this market right now, it's been a little tough to be cool with making a couple $100 a month, but I understand the value in long-term investing as well. So kind of just, we sort of, we're not just approaching every deal with a hammer, so to speak. We got a couple different tools, and depending on what the seller needs, then we'll make that offer or multiple offers in some scenario and kind of go from there. So yeah, 4 years learning about real estate, 3 years actually, making a little money doing it and doing deals and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Tim, Matt, good to see you guys. Trisha, Mark, good to see you this morning from Birmingham, Alabama. I tell you, man, that Mark, he's always somewhere new. Gosh, weren't you in Asheville a few days ago? Gee, guy, you need to slow down a little bit. Renee, good to see you this morning. So you got started. Hey, Joni. You got started, took you about a year to really get some traction, which it was a part-time gig. You were working and getting your feet wet. But I know before we got on here, you said you guys are 20-ish, 30 deals in now. So you're really starting to get some traction, doing a lot of wholesaling, rehabbing. But you had also done some creative stuff prior. You had actually negotiated some seller finance deals for your rehabs and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the name of the game is right. How much money can I keep in my pocket while still moving forward and trying to do the deal, acquire the house, whatever the case may be. So I'm always sort of having those conversations with sellers. Would you consider, can I make you some payments? If I can pay you this, I'm always creatively, even if I'm occasionally sort of fumbling over myself, trying to see if there's anything I can do that's not just a flat out cash offer. Sometimes that's not the case, and that is the best scenario for both of us. But in a scenario where, when I'm talking to a seller and I'm asking them, I need this, I need that, or can you help me with this, or can you make this phone call, or what about this? And they're responsive and they're holding up their end of the bargain, so to speak, right? Like, I'm going to do this if you can help me do this. A couple months in, there's like, okay, there's a certain element of trust. They have to trust me, and I have to return that trust. But yeah, we had a deal where it was two sisters. They were about to lose the house in 30 days. I connected with one of the sisters just on some human to human, just good vibes. I connected with her. She gave me the benefit of the doubt, trusted me, convinced her sister, which was a little bit more skeptical, and the one living in the house, to work with me. The house was a full rehab. Basically, we were about to close on it the week Corona sort of like they shut down the NBA. This was last year. And so that pushed the entire deal back. And I was essentially able to, instead of close on the deal, we were paying them a couple $1,000 a month to have them just wait. We said, why don't you just keep the deal in your name instead of closing on it? We just kept it in their name. We fixed it. They signed over the deed. We paid them a little bit for the extra time per month. And then at closing, once we sold it to the retail buyer, everyone just got paid at the same time. We got our fee, they got theirs. Everybody was happy.
Right.
You know, so that was a pretty cool scenario.
You brought up something that's a good point. And for anybody on here, let me just share this with you today. You need a clause in your contract, especially when you're buying a property that has a mortgage existing on it, that says you have a closing date of X, but you're entitled to extend that closing date by 30 days for paying X amount. And you want to make that amount the mortgage payment. So let's say in your case, the mortgage payment on that house was $750. If you had a closing date of July the 1st and you had the clause in there that you're entitled to extend that closing date by an additional 30 days for paying the seller an additional $750, covers their mortgage payment, gets you an additional 30 days. And it's just a good thing to have in there. You know, they're not really out anything. So that's a really good clause. You should have that. We've got that in our contract. We use it. And it's, you know, like I said, it's just one of those things. It gives you some extra time if you need it, but it's a good thing to do. So you guys are marketing. You've been in it for 2-3 years. You're doing fix and flips and that sort of thing. What got you interested in Sub2?
I listened. I fell upon a bunch of these old school investors like John Schwab, Jack Miller, Pete Fortunato.
They're the best. Pete Fortunato.
They're the best. Yeah, they're the best. The first time I went to a Pete Fortunato course, I'm actually going to Atlanta for financial freedom principles today. I leave in a few hours to the airport. Yeah, taking my girl. I went a couple years ago. Told her it was amazing. I wanted to take her, and then I always learn something new from those guys.
Right.
So just hearing them talk about how they creatively structure deals and approach deal making as an art in and of itself. This isn't about the Rolex or the fancy car. None of this. These guys love their transactions and their deals and getting creative in that sense. But yeah, when you start learning about creative finance, Subject2 is one of those that just always pops up. So I was more aware of it than anything. Okay, if I need to take a property subject to the existing financing, that is a potential possibility. And so that's how I approach, for me, it's about finding sellers that are willing to raise their hand and that want to sell, and or need to sell, right? And depending on that scenario, then I kind of figure out which potential tools might work. Send a couple options, send them a couple offers. A lot of times, if you give them 2 or 3 options, they forget they don't have to choose any of them. They'll try to figure out which one works. And I'm making the offers based on what I would like and what I think they need, from listening, asking questions, and things like that. And so I'm usually okay with whichever offer they tend to choose. But I give them options. But yeah, Subject2 just kind of comes up when once you dive into this space of creatively acquiring properties, it's definitely one of those tools. So
absolutely. Hey, Tammy, good to see you. Tammy from Texas. We got Tammy from Texas, Tammy from Arkansas. Yeah, Mark, I agree. Peter Fortunato is the best. And the sad thing is, I guarantee you could go into some of these 100,000 member groups and say Pete Fortunato, and everybody say, who's that? But I'm telling you, these guys, the Jack Millers, the Pete Fortunatos, and all the Florida six pack, those guys, when they're gone, I mean, this huge piece of creative real estate knowledge. It's just like, I heard a saying one time that said, every time an old person dies, a library closes. And that's
Yeah.
the case
Yeah.
with guys like Pete Fortunato. And the cool thing about those guys is, hey, Andrew, good to see you on here, Scott. Is that those guys, you go, like, I guarantee you, you're going to a 2-day event Pete's doing,
Mm,
and it probably cost what, $500.
correct.
And you can
Correct.
go to some of these things that are $10,000
Mm-hmm.
for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, by the end, by lunchtime on the first day of that Pete
Mm-hmm.
Fortunato event, your brain is just going to be
Mm-hmm.
fried.
William, you sound like me right now when I'm talking to my other investor friends down
Yeah.
here in Miami. Everything you just
Yeah.
said, I say almost uh,
Yeah.
exactly the same. Just trying to like, yo, the amount of value that you get in
Right.
that $500 course compared, because I've been to other seminars,
Right.
although I've been to a lot less of them since I discovered
Right.
those guys. But
Right.
I just keep going. I just keep going. David Tilney, John Schwab, these guys are Pete's still teaching,
Right.
and there's nothing you can buy online. He doesn't sell
That's
anything.
right.
There's no
Right.
videos. There's very little you can find
Mhm.
online. I wish there was more, but he's not interested in selling
He is
anything.
such
It's
a
very interesting.
he
Yeah.
is such a cool guy too. I remember one time being at some event with him and listening to him talk about that his retirement plan was to get arrested for tax evasion and go to federal pen. But he's just
Yeah.
they're just so super creative. Hey, Isaiah, good to see you. Farouk, glad you're on here today.
And you go to these seminars and you're in the room with other investors and you talk
Mhm.
to them. Oh yeah, I got 15 properties. I started going to Pete Fortunato classes in 2002, or 2006 or 1998. Like, it's not a room full of newbies in that sense. There are always a few
Right.
newbies, so to speak, right? But there's also people that keep going. Oh, this is my sixth Pete Fortunato class
Mhm.
because I didn't understand anything the first 4 times
That's
I went.
right. You have to keep going to
Yeah,
absorb all the knowledge
correct.
because it's just so intense.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. Okay, guys. So everybody's here this morning to hear about your deal. So here we are. We can
Mhm.
talk about Pete Fortunato all day long.
For sure.
But so tell us about this deal. How did you find this
Yeah,
particular?
so this deal was marketing channel wise, this was an SMS
Mhm.
texting lead. Uh we're doing about 10 to 15,000 a month uh in texting,
Mhm.
just constantly texting.
It's all
But
in the
this
in your area within an hour of you.
all yeah, correct, all South
Okay.
Florida
Okay.
thus far right now, which
Mhm.
is why we it's not about a ton of volume for us as far as deal flow, because we're taking them down and rehabbing a lot of these deals, which take time, but we're making 2 or 3 times what we might make wholesaling it. And we have my partner as far as rehabbing contractors, that's his world. So it's a good balance between, I'm on the front side of the deal, he's on the back side of the deal. But texting lead, it was a texting lead who did not respond to my text the first 4 times we texted him, but I put him on a drip campaign. And until you tell me to, take a hike, F off,
Mhm.
whatever the case may be, you're going to keep getting the occasional text from me. In
Mhm.
this scenario, he wrote back. He hadn't written back the first 4 times. He wrote back the fifth time. So we
Mhm.
started engaging with him. He said he was thinking about selling. As long as there's some general idea, or like, even if you're just thinking of selling, I try to get you on the phone. I try to
Mhm.
go from text to a real life human being on the phone, because I know that I can convert much better on the phone.
Right.
So I
Okay.
got him on the phone.
So you sent
Yeah.
out it was just a mass text. Did you just pull a list of what's your list criteria
Yeah,
that you
right now
texting?
I'm going pretty wide because we're doing a decent amount of numbers per. So last year I tried going very niche with our list. All the typical lists that everybody talks about. I tried going very niche, and we did deals. But
Mhm.
I wanted to maintain volume, and I was thinking, well, if everyone's talking about doing the same list, what about those that aren't on a list or aren't on those specific niche lists? So we go pretty wide, honestly, other than the fact that, like, I'm looking for single family, small multifamily residential. um, I want you to own it for at least a few years. I think I'm only doing 3 years. I'm thinking for that specific list, I think it was just 3 years of ownership or more. But pretty much I'm pulling by zip code. I'm
Gotcha.
doing two or three zip codes a month,
Mhm.
focusing just on those. If they don't respond, I put them on a drip campaign. That that property was just on a general zip code list, meaning I pulled that zip code specifically, which is a popular one in Broward. But there was no signs of distress
Mhm.
that we could see as investors. He was up
Right.
to date on his taxes. He wasn't behind on his mortgage. He was in forbearance, but he wasn't behind on his mortgage, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
Um, even the exterior of the house, all set and told, is not brand new by any means, but
Right.
fair enough.
Okay.
I see tons of houses way worse.
Okay.
So it would have been tough to find.
Right.
And like I said, we texted him multiple times and he just
Right.
happened to respond that fifth time. Right time, right place, I guess, right? Consistency is
Right.
key here.
Gotcha.
Um, but I
Okay.
started
So,
engaging with him. Oh yeah, go ahead.
right. So texting. So this is how you initially got the lead. Hey guys, if y'all have any
Yes.
questions as we're working through this deal, go ahead and pop them in there, and we'll get to those. Okay. So you would just target a zip code with very
Pretty
little
much.
criteria other than a
Yeah.
single family, small multifamily.
Hmm.
And where do you get your list from?
Uh, we use, I'm using PropStream actually
Okay.
right now. For that general list, I'm using
Mhm.
PropStream. This
Okay.
year I've been using almost exclusively PropStream. Last year we were doing a lot of foreclosure daily and PropStream.
Mhm.
Uh, but PropStream, yeah,
Okay. So
PropStream.
are you skip tracing right inside PropStream too, or are you pulling that information out and using somebody else?
I'm pulling it out and using somebody else. I'm
Okay.
using, so we use Launch Control for our
Mhm.
SMS texting, and
Okay.
they have built-in skip tracing. It's really good.
Gotcha.
It's a high response. It's a high, what do you call it? Um,
High
when they find the
volume.
numbers. Yeah,
Okay.
well, so it's usually above 80, 85% on the
Mhm.
regular. I just like that it's in the system from a
Right.
convenience point of view. I've
Right.
tried pulling it, skip tracing it over here, then
Right.
putting it back into the and I
Yeah.
lose too many days in between, or the
Yeah.
VA would do things wrong. So I just
Yeah.
keep it in the system. Um, skip trace it right within the system and text
Right.
from within the system. I
Okay.
have a VA that sends the text for me. She also does the conversations and sends me all the ones that are medium to high.
Right.
I engage
So
with those.
so you guys just have you say you target certain zip codes. Do you have a certain number that you send out every month as far as, well, we're going to do 5,000 leads this month? Or do you operate like that with a budget that way? Or you say everything in that zip code we're doing this month? How do you do that?
Yeah, pretty much everything I can get. Like I said, single family, small multi-family. I'll do 20% of equity. Uh, what else? What else? What else? It's a pretty general list.
Mhm.
I
Right.
try to avoid those that have sold within the last year or two for obvious
Right.
reasons.
Okay.
Um, although one can argue that for subject twos, potentially that might be a good lead source, I guess, right? If they don't have a lot of equity. But
But you
ideally, I like
said
to.
you're not filtering it very much.
Not very much. That's the main
Right.
idea. I'm not filtering
Right.
very much because I'm trying. It's a little bit of a. Last year we filtered a lot more.
Right. Hmm.
This year I said, what if we filter a lot less? And just try to talk to more people. In my
Right.
experience, the more people I talk to, the more leads I get, thus more contracts, eventually more closings, etc.
Right.
So we're going wider just to try to. I'm trying volume. I'm going
Mhm.
for volume this year, and from a marketing texting perspective, I do a little bit of direct mail. We do some cold calling, but much lower in volume compared to the texting.
Gotcha.
Um,
All
yeah,
right. Hey, Yvette, good to see you. Ant says, thanks for sharing your experience. Hey, yeah,
yeah. Thank
we're
you.
super appreciative of William this morning. Ant asks, what's a drip campaign? And that's going to be a follow-up sequence
Hmm.
in something like REI Black Book. What are you using for follow-up?
So the drip campaign is built into our SMS
Okay. I got
messaging platform. So
gotcha.
right within there,
Mhm.
I could have a drip campaign that's 30 days away from the last conversation.
Right.
Let's say they give me some they say yes, they're interested, and then they go ghost on me, right? They stop talking to me. Even if I try to follow up, they haven't gone ghost. I said, okay, I got a ton of leads to go through. I don't
Mhm.
want to forget about this one, but I can't just sit here all day and focus on this one lead. Let's
Right.
put it on a drip campaign so that they get another text from me 30 days from now.
Mhm.
And that's it. I don't have to think about it. It's on a drip. Every day we send out drips. Every day we
Mhm.
send out drips.
Right. But this is an
And
automated process that's just built into your platform. You don't have to
yeah, it's
go
built
in
into the
and do it.
platform.
Right.
Correct. And in my and the follow-up, for instance, the follow-up campaign might say something like, hey John, I didn't hear back from you. Just want to know if you're still interested in selling 123 Main Street or something like
Mhm.
that.
Gotcha.
And yeah.
All right. Hey, Anthony, good morning to you in Winston-Salem. Yeah. Andrew's asking again, I know he said this, but who are you using for your SMS?
They're called launch control.
Launch control. Okay.
Yeah, launch control.
And Joni's got a question we were going to get to, guys. We're going to get to the deal. We're working through some questions. But Joni asked, are you concerned with the new laws regarding SMS and contacting unsolicited?
Great question. I guess the simple answer is a little bit, but I'm also going to leave it to my SMS marketing guys. Like,
Mhm.
we're having that conversation. They're working. They're way more on top of the law, what that might mean for us than I am, right? And they're trying to stay compliant. They need
Right,
to stay compliant, or else they
right,
don't have a business.
right.
So I am leaning on them to make sure that we're good to go.
Okay.
Can that change one day? 100%.
Mhm.
100%. Up until then, I know some people are saying texting's not working or this or that. It's still working for us.
Mhm.
I
Well,
I can't
it's
lie. It's still working for us.
obvious.
And when it doesn't, then we'll move accordingly. It's not the only thing we do. We do deals off the MLS. We do a little bit of niche direct mail,
Mhm.
and we cold call.
Right,
There's always going to be a way to
right.
contact sellers.
But
I'm not
but in
overly
this
concerned
case,
with it.
this is where this particular deal came from. Jerry asked,
Correct.
did they scrub for do not call?
Uh,
You know?
I think they do actually.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think they do. Yeah. I think they do automatically. And they also, like, if you skip trace and you've already skip traced that lead before,
Mhm.
you won't text them again. Or if you've already sent them a text, you won't
Right.
text them again. So it's
Okay.
pretty efficient in that way.
Yeah. Okay. So this particular lead came from a mass text,
Hmm.
SMS.
Hmm.
And what you got this guy, you said he didn't respond to you for the first four
Hmm.
texts. He was on a drip
Hmm.
campaign. He finally responded. You got him on the phone. So now I tell students this all the time, and you tell me if this was correct in this case. I think from your
Hmm.
post, it probably is. The deal's always in the story. So
Right.
the seller had a story. What was his story?
So I called him. Uh, I called him, and he, I think he went through a recent, like, bad divorce. That's still kind of lingering. It wasn't recent, like not a couple months ago, but there's still some drama going on there. He didn't
Right.
feel overly inclined to tell me too much, and quite frankly, I didn't need to know all the details.
Mhm.
Um, I asked him I always lead with the general questions about the house. Tell me a little bit about the house. Is it still a 3-2? How's the kitchen, bathrooms, roof, et cetera, et cetera. He bought it 3 years ago. I could still see the listing photos from 3 years ago.
Right.
I asked him, based on these photos, does it look more or less about the same? He said, yeah, maybe a little worse.
Mhm.
A little to him might be a lot different than a little to me,
Right.
but sure, sounds good. Um, he went through a divorce, and he was talking about moving back to be with his family in Missouri. He's from Missouri. He's living down here. It, it, we kind of left it at that. And because the house is only about 25 to 20 minutes away from me, I said, does it make sense? Uh, Mr. Seller, his name's Donald, but does it make sense, Donald, to meet at the property? We could talk a little bit more. We can meet in person. I'd love you to show me around the house. Um, and he said, yeah, how about tomorrow at 2? Like, he was very easy to work with. There was a certain sense of urgency, which he
Right.
was trying to kind of be cool about, but I could sense because I talked to a lot of sellers.
Mhm.
Uh, because I remember I think he actually might have asked me, when do you want to see it? When do you want to see it? I asked him a couple more questions. I said, you know what? It's about 20, 25 minutes away. I could be there pretty quick. Good zip code. Sounds like a nice house. Sure. So there was some divorce stuff going on. I don't think his life in Florida was quite what he thought it was going to be a few years ago. And he wants to move back to Missouri to be with his family. And he wanted to do it sooner than later. Basically, that's the story. That's pretty much his story.
Okay. So
Yeah,
you got him on the phone. He's in forbearance. He's not really behind on
correct.
payments. It's
He did tell me
approved.
that
I
as
mean,
well. Yeah, he told me he
right.
was in forbearance.
Okay. And he just wants to move back and be with his family because he's down here by
Hmm.
himself, basically. So,
Hmm.
okay.
Correct.
So you get over there. Tell us about the house. I mean, I'm guessing it's just probably a pretty standard 3-bedroom, 2-bath,
Yeah,
neighborhood, that sort of
3-2, about 1,300 square feet.
thing.
Um, Very kind of like middle class, working
Mhm.
class neighborhood.
Right.
Could probably rent for about 2,000 to 2,200. It's in a very particularly hot zip code in Florida. That's pretty
Mhm.
large, and even within that zip code, there's certain pockets that are a little harder, or not harder. Sorry, more popular than others.
Mhm.
But it's a good neighborhood. Yeah, great house. It's a good
Right.
house. I like, it's
Okay.
a good house. A cookie cutter 3-2. There's no garage. But other than that, it's a 3-2. Nothing fancy about it, but
Right.
a good solid 3-2 CBS, concrete block house. that does need some work,
Mhm.
but also isn't, a complete gut job, so to
Right.
speak.
Gotcha.
So
Hey, Mark, be patient. We're getting there. That's my next question, actually, about the numbers. Mark says, "What are the numbers?" Okay,
I got you.
so you said it would rent for 2,000 to 2,200. What
Yeah,
about the financing? So you get over there, you start talking to him, you're asking questions about the financing,
yeah,
and so what are the numbers? I mean, what does he owe? What are his payments? What's
yeah,
everything
yeah,
look
yeah.
like?
So this is where it gets kind of exciting. I would say this is where it gets pretty interesting. Because he initially told me he wanted 210 for the property and that he owed 197, 198, something like that. And he
That's
showed me the
great.
statement.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking to myself, he wants 210, which is what he paid for it 3 years ago. He
Mhm.
owes 197. I said, okay. I'm running the comps. I know the neighborhood. I know a 1,300 square foot house in that neighborhood is not worth 210 anymore,
Right.
especially in this market in South Florida, which is crazy right now.
Mhm.
I'm looking at I'm looking at the comps. I'm thinking, you know what, this house is is already worth more than 210, and fixed up, rehab, nice and new, clean, could probably touch 300, maybe even 315. So he's left all the appreciation from the last 3 years on the table.
Mhm.
Why? He gave me the offer first. I didn't
Mhm.
even shoot the offer. He told me, give me 210. I don't need a lot. We get this done. And so there was equity right from the beginning. We made him a cash offer actually initially, and had this house wholesaled for $22,000 profit on our end. We already
Mhm.
had it sold for 242. I think it was 242, 240, something like that. Long story short, real quickly, like a week later, he calls me back. He said he called the lender to get an updated payoff, and he forgot to take into account the escrow advance because
Mhm.
the lender had been paying the insurance and the taxes.
Right.
So he forgot to take that into account. And what else? What else? There was something else. There was something else on that statement that he forgot to take into account. Basically, he ended up owing the lender 214.
Mhm.
He called me really worried. William, I'm so sorry. You know, looks like I owe the lender a lot more than I thought. What can we do here? He wanted to work with me. There was a certain
Right.
sense of urgency there. When I showed up to the house, I had to stop him from just going ahead and signing the contract to
Right.
actually show me the house first,
Mhm.
which I have to, I don't have to tell anybody, is usually not the case. It's
Yeah.
usually the other way around.
Right.
It takes a little while to get him to sign the contract, on average. This was not the case with him,
Mhm.
which made me even a little hesitant.
Mhm.
I've talked to a lot of sellers. I've gotten a lot of contracts signed.
Right.
It's almost never that easy. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, what, you know, is there something I'm missing here? Is he hiding
Mhm.
something? What's going on here? It was almost too easy to get him to sign. And at that point, when he signed, it was still just a cash offer, which was the initial offer I made because we had equity. We're just going to wholesale it.
Mhm.
He came back to me and said, "Oh, I owe this much. I owe more than I thought." I talked to my partner. What do we do here? My partner Mike was, well, what if we, what if we buy subject to the existing financing? And I said, well, we got it wholesale. And there's equity. We don't necessarily need to. And he said, yeah, but we can do that and keep it as a rental. I don't know. Why don't you just ask? I said, well, fair enough. All right. Why don't I just ask? So I came back basically and told them, since we would have to be paying almost $10,000 more for the property, would you consider $5,000? How about we keep the loan in your name? I make the payments on your behalf. It'll improve your credit score. And like that, you don't have to worry about closing costs and this and that. He said yes, pretty fast.
Yep.
He said yes. Uh, I'm not gonna lie, it was easier than I thought it was gonna be. I thought I was gonna have to over explain a lot more. He said yes pretty fast right away. So then that became the new, kind of taking that back to my partner. I was like, he said yes. I think this might be a subject. We might be doing a subject two here right now
Mhm.
because we don't have to come out of pocket. We don't have to go to a hard money lender. And then wholesaling it was, still an option, but we can make more money either rehabbing it and flipping it, or just holding on to it, and keeping it as a rental with very little money out of pocket.
Right.
Um, we still have to put some money to fix it up, but yeah, the numbers, right? The house is worth 3 to 315. We owe the lender 214. I gave him 5K. I paid some closing costs. I did end up going through a title company, working
Mhm.
with an attorney and paying some closing costs. I was okay with doing that from a safety perspective, considering
Right.
that this is our first one.
Sure.
I didn't feel comfortable, handling it all from A to Z.
Mhm.
My attorney has some specialty with subject twos and creative financing and stuff like that
Right.
too. And that's kind of where we're at. I mean, yeah, that's
So
kind of
a
the
couple of key points that William brought up here. Number one, and this is what I tell students all the time, I always try my best to get the seller to give me what they want first. If you can get an idea about what they're looking to walk away with, and if any of you guys that listen to our cold calling ninja live calls, you know I do this all the time. So what are you looking to walk away from?
right.
Walk away from this thing with in your pocket. So we can structure this thing in a way to make it work, just like William did here. Ultimately, he gave the guy $5,000. He took over his payments, and it worked. But you know, if William had just made an offer out of the gate without trying to find out what this guy wanted, he would have probably offered a lot more for the house. It would have probably wound up costing you another 20, 30,000 plus if you just
Yes.
made the offer first.
Facts. Oh, I missed this little detail. The reason, actually, the reason before my partner suggested the subject too, the reason it came up in our conversation was because Mike said, actually, what if we offer him subject to, but we offer him a little bit more money? He was going to walk away initially with about $11,000 regular traditional closing cash offer scenario. I
Right.
remember talking to him and asking him, if we give you a few $1,000s more, because I was like, what if we take over the property subject to the existing financing, right? So we'll keep the loan in your name. I'll continue to make the payments on your behalf. But instead of, because of that, you'll be saving us money and time. I'd rather give you that money
Right.
than just go ahead and give it to a lender.
Mhm.
That was appealing to him. He said
Right.
yes initially to that offer.
Mhm.
Then it was after that that he found out he owed more
Right.
than he actually did, and he was all stressed out and
Mhm.
was apologizing to me. I said,
Right.
honest mistake. This honest mistake happened to anybody.
Right.
He probably should have called the lender prior to throwing out any numbers. You know, definitely a mistake that cost him a little bit of money.
Right.
Um, but I came
So,
back to him. I said, we could still do the deal. I
mhm.
can't give you the 15 because now I'm paying a lot more than initially for this property.
Right.
What about 5? I just made the offer.
Mhm.
I just made the offer, and he said, "Sounds good. Let's do it. I want to get out of here." Like
Well,
he
yeah,
was
I
ready
mean,
to go.
the difference, he thought initially he owed 197. He found out he owed
Correct.
214. I mean,
Yes.
that added what,
Yeah.
$17,000 for what
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
owed. So he probably thought that was great. You were giving him 5. So let's see where we are here right now. The guy owes 214. You said this
Hmm.
house fully rehabbed would be worth 3 to 315.
Yeah. Easy.
Uh, okay. And you said it can rent for 2,000 to 2,200. What are his
Mhm.
payments? PITI
His payments right now are about 18, or no, 16. 16.
16.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
16. It was 16.
So under normal circumstances, without a forbearance, if you just start making the payments, they're around 1,600, taxes,
Hmm.
insurance, everything included.
With everything.
Okay. So you're looking at between $400 and $600 a month in cash flow.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
hundred
Somewhere around there.
thousand in equity,
Yeah.
roughly, 80
Yeah.
to 100, and it needs how much work to get it ready to go?
If we're gonna keep it as a rental,
Mhm.
I would probably say closer to like 20 to 25. If we're
Okay.
going to go a little higher end to resell it on the market, 25 to 30, just based on what we've been playing lately for some of these rehabs and the condition it's in. It's not bad. We're not going to do all the kitchen, but we got to do some of it. Probably
Right.
do new floors, new baseboards, new paint inside and outside, a little bit of patchwork on the roof. We don't have to do the whole roof. We just got to do, there's a little bit of work that needs to be done, a little bit of work on the fascia. Nothing crazy, nothing crazy. We've done way bigger jobs.
Right.
But conservatively, 25 to 30 if we're going to resell it. We can
Mhm.
probably get away with 20 if we're just going to keep it,
Okay.
go a little lower end on the
So,
furnishings and stuff.
so have you decided yet what you're going to do with it?
I'll be honest with you. I think I know exactly what I'm going to do with it.
Mhm.
So, related, unrelated, I'm also in the middle of a 1031 exchange right now. My
Right.
father sold some property in
Mhm.
Chicago.
Mhm.
He's on the verge of retiring. He sold an auto shop and a single family house. And so he would owe a decent amount on taxes. We're talking over 200,000 in taxes
Right.
if he was to just go ahead and pocket that money. I told him, Dad, we should do a 1031. Let's buy some property here in Florida. So I'm buying another duplex. And then I was thinking, well, our LLC, my partner's LLC actually owns this property. So I'm not anywhere on title or anything like that. We're going to probably end up fixing up this property and essentially flipping it to my parents. You know,
Mhm.
the deal for my parents is in the tax savings on the 1031. They're
Right.
going to have a new rehab 3-2 and a great zip code in Fort Lauderdale. We get to realize that equity and, take home. Essentially, we're flipping it. We already have the buyers, and I
Mhm.
get the security of knowing that out of the two properties, at least one of them we have some control over, because the other one I don't. As far as the seller and all that goes. So, to answer you honestly, we're probably gonna flip it to my parents,
Mhm.
who are gonna buy it via their 1031 exchange.
Okay. So
I
they're
think
going to
that's what
save
I'm
a
leaning
ton of
towards.
money. They're going to
They're
save a
gonna save.
ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to realize all of your profit right away. So,
Mm-hmm.
so what you're going to do is you're going to use their money to rehab the property,
We're
spend,
gonna we're gonna use our money. We're gonna use
Mhm.
our money to rehab the
Okay.
property.
All right,
We're gonna
and
use our money to
sell
finish rehabbing and then
it.
just sell it to them.
Right. So you're buying for 214. You gave the seller 5. You're going to put 25 or so into it. So you're going to walk away with about a $65,000
Correct.
profit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in the 60 to 65K range is what we're thinking
Okay. All
at the
right.
end of the day.
Great. So
Yeah.
wonderful. Everybody wins on that deal then. I mean, seller
Correct.
got
Correct.
out of there with more than he thought he would. And you guys are gonna make 65 grand in probably what, 90 days.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
And your parents are gonna save a ton of
Own a
money
new rental. Yeah.
on
And
a
I'm
new
gonna end up
rental.
managing that rental for them.
Right. Okay.
Uh, and so they'll have that. They'll save on the cash savings. They'll have some cash flow, which is what it's important to my father right now, in his retirement years. And yeah, you know what? I was stressing out about the 1031, and I had this realization at night. Like laying down at bed, I had this realization. Wait, we're rehabbing about 5 or 6 houses right now. Why don't my parents just buy one of these houses?
Mhm.
Because then we can control the transaction. That's what's stressful about the 1031 is the timing, the 45 days, the 6 months to close, all of that kind of stuff. So
Right.
yeah, that
Yeah.
that that is, I've talked to my partner about it. He's cool with it. We have a buyer already lined up. My parents are willing to pay market value. We're not losing any money there in that scenario, so to speak. And in a sense, I'm still keeping the property.
Yeah,
I'm going
that's
to be
right.
managing it for my
Yeah.
parents. So
So you're
that's
going
what
to
we're doing.
manage it. Yeah. I mean, you're a paid manager probably. I
Correct.
don't know.
Yeah.
That's a deduction for them. And,
Hmm.
it's profit for you. Aunt asks, are your parents doing this inside a self-directed IRA? Have they got that set up? Are they doing that?
They are not doing this
Right.
transaction in a self-directed IRA, but with about a week and a half ago, they have regular traditional IRAs, but they
Right.
just put $7,000 each in their first self-directed IRA. So my mom did 7,000, my dad did 7,000. I did it with Advanta, Larissa at Advanta, really cool company. We have not utilized the funds yet, but the funds are now in their self-directed IRA, just a little bit of money.
Right.
Um, I had to explain to my dad like 5 times how it worked.
Yeah.
He was like, well, what if it doesn't earn any money? Well, that's our problem then,
Yeah.
dad, because we did put the money to
Right.
work. This is not going to be, we're not going to put them in the mutual funds or stocks or bonds. Let's do some stuff with real estate,
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, this transaction has nothing to do with their self-directed IRA. My dad didn't know about that stuff.
Right.
I've been showing him about it and I've been learning about it as well. But as the real estate, he's seen me go from nothing to something, and has his son, he's giving me the benefit of the doubt, and he's seeing me do this, and he's trusted me in the
Mhm.
process. So I'm not taking that lightly. This is their
Mhm.
retirement income. uh it's also fun for me. We're going to turn the other one into an Airbnb. This one, the Fort Lauderdale one, is just going to be a regular rental. The
Right.
other one I'm buying is a new construction in a really nice area in Miami. We're going to turn that into an Airbnb. My girlfriend's going to help me manage it, and yeah, failing forward accordingly,
Yeah.
just failing
Absolutely.
forward, taking that risk, and knowing that on the other side I'll always be better off for it.
Yeah.
Am I going to hit it out the park every time? Impossible.
Yeah.
Will I
So
win over that time because I'm trying? I think so.
I think so. So this one was so simple, William. Do you think
Yeah.
you'll be
Yeah.
looking at more situations where you can just take over the payments?
Well, I'm going to definitely be just asking that question more frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I reiterate, I don't sit down, and I kind of got my investing philosophy really is sort of inherited, handed down from these old school guys.
Mhm.
I've listened to a lot of different, when you and I were talking, I appreciate your Facebook group, your teachings. I appreciate you because you're very down to earth and you know what you're talking about. There's not a lot of BS. You tell it how it is. Um, and that's how these guys are. you know, and I want to hear from somebody that's been in the game for 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
The new guy that got rich wholesaling 4 years ago, okay, he might know a thing or two about marketing. And so I'll listen to him about marketing.
Right.
But he's never been through a single downturn because we've been, going up now for years. So I want to hear from the guys that have been through a couple things like that got scars that like that's who I listen to. But are they all going to be this easy? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Did it almost seemingly kind of fall in my lap in a weird way? Yes, but I also had the knowledge or foresight or access to ask the question. I put myself mentally in that place to educate myself to at least know what to ask.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out from there. Like if they say yes, I'll figure it out. But
education is super important. And not only that, you said something that's key there. Did it seem too easy? And I tell students this all the time. They're like, oh, it's so hard. There aren't any out there. If you put yourself in front of enough people, you will meet someone where it will be easy. That's just numbers. It's always a numbers game. And are we in a super hot sellers market right now? Absolutely. Is it tougher now than it was a year and a half ago? Absolutely. I mean, I know I've been doing this 22 years. It's harder for me too. But you just got to talk to more people and do more things. If texting's your thing, if direct mail's your thing, doesn't matter what it is. You hear this all the time. What text message should I send? What should my letter say? What should my postcard say? That might have some importance on a response, but the more important thing is that you text or that you mail or that you call. Just do it consistently day in and day out.
The reason I didn't make money my first year was not because of the information I was receiving or the action I was taking, which in hindsight was all correct or official or real. It was my lack of consistency that held me back. You said it yourself without me even saying it. I kind of had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I was still making the transition, and in South Florida anyway at the time, and it's not what it is right now, but it still was very high a couple years ago. I realized relatively quickly that I'm not going to be able to survive off of this if I'm just casually sending some direct mail or casually making some phone calls, because I am in a competitive market, and there's some rock stars down here. Those guys are going to get the deal before I can almost all the time. But what I do have is consistency, and that's what I lacked initially. As soon as I kind of fixed that problem, from a marketing point of view, at least just making sure that consistently the marketing was going out there, then receiving the leads became a lot less easier. And, if you have no leads, you have no real estate business. Give me a lot of leads. Like that's a new problem, right? Too many leads and trying to figure out what to do with them. And that's a different problem, but give me that problem all day versus not being able to talk to anybody or having no leads. I've been there, and that's not a good problem to have in the real estate business, because like you said, it is a numbers game. You talk to enough people, you're going to get those lucky, quote unquote, easy deals, but you only get them because you've heard no 500 times before that one, or whatever the case may be,
It's like the old saying, I can't remember who it was, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
There you go. Yeah,
isn't that the truth? The truth?
I'm teaching I got a 20-year-old right now that's driving for dollars for me and making cold calls. I gave him the script. I told him what to say. I said, listen, you just got to work on getting that initial hand raised, catch their vibe. This is what I'm asking for. This is what you should be asking. This is ideally how they should be responding. I can't make the phone calls, or I can't drive for dollars for you. And he came to me initially, a young guy that wants to learn. And I said, I'll teach you. But ultimately you're going to have to, take the time to do it. And it's always the hardest in the beginning. When you don't have the confidence, you haven't done that first deal, that's when it's the hardest. And he's going through it right now, but we get on the phone a couple times a week, give him a little boost of motivation, make sure he's doing what he needs to be doing, some accountability, which always helps. And he's on and off right now. I think his mindset is in the right place. He just needs to now apply and take action. But which is the hardest part, especially in the beginning, because you're not really sure if what you're doing is gonna work. I just spent $500 and I have nothing to show for it. That sting is real.
That's why that first deal is so important. And it doesn't really matter if you don't make but $500 or $1,000 or whatever, because then it really works. You can buy it for this and sell it for that. or whatever the case is. Somebody will actually sign a piece of paper and give you ownership of a house and let you take over payments. It's amazing. I mean, I remember what that felt like. I couldn't believe it because
Yeah.
I had a lot of doubts in the beginning about Sub2.
I still remember when I still channel that feeling that I had probably spent about 12,000 that first year, but that first deal that I'm talking about, the first deal 14, 15 months in made me 42,000. It was a $42,000 gross and wholesale deal, which in hindsight, I wish I would have kept that house. But at the time, it is what it is.
Right.
And I probably have that feeling years from now after wholesaling all these houses. So me and my partner are making that transition, focusing on more buy and holds. What is it? Mike Cantu says you got 4 wholesales. Sell 3 of them, keep 1, keep the best one. That idea, we're trying to hold on to that a little bit more. But I don't know. I love this game. Every day is a challenge. Every deal is a different deal. Every seller is a different seller. Like, I like it.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I'll tell you, it doesn't change. I fell in love with real estate immediately. I felt like this is what I've been waiting to do all of my life. And it doesn't change. It's always exciting. The sellers are, just like you said, the sellers are all different. The stories are different. You're able to help people buy and sell. It's financially, it's a great gig, and it's very rewarding too, to help people that otherwise would be in a bad situation. Well, William, we really appreciate you sharing the deal with you. Just to close out, by just, if you had the ability to give every new investor on here one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think I touched on it already, but consistency. As soon as I solved that problem, business started changing for me, in the sense that I started getting deals. I started making money. I started having more opportunities. The lack of consistency for me in the very beginning, and still to this day in certain parts of my business, is a work in progress. But the consistency, you can't stop the marketing. If we're talking about, if you're just starting and you're trying to talk to people, being consistent in whatever you do. Don't overly concern yourself with the details, so to speak, like you said, what specific list, what am I exactly going to say? Because if you listen to enough people, you watch enough YouTube videos, you buy enough courses, whatever the case may be, most people kind of more or less say the same thing, and they all work. They all work. Bandit signs, PPC, driving for dollars, they all work if you do it consistently enough. So consistency, and I think, like, if you're hearing this right now and you feel like you're not consistent enough, lean into that feeling more and try to fix it. Lean into that feeling of okay, I'm spending some money on marketing. You got to make sure you're working the leads when they come in. But if you're spending that money on marketing, you have to trust the process. You might just spend $1,000 that month, not necessarily make any money that month from those $1,000 you just spent. It might not be till 4, 5, 6 months later. This deal that we're talking about, this subject to, was I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 months in the making, in the sense that I texted him 4 times and he didn't respond till his 5th time. So that might have been my 5th or 6th month working that lead. But I paid for that lead almost half a year before he said yes and we started talking. So that can be tough to kind of trust that process, but without that trust, I think it's hard. The start stop is really hard. So consistency. 100%. Just stay consistent.
That's great advice. And the only thing I would add to that at all is, it doesn't matter where you are. Start from where you are with what you can afford. If you've got $50 a month to do marketing, then utilize that $50, have a plan. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff that's free. And that's the thing. Expensive stuff, a lot of times, is hands off. Cheap stuff requires work. Okay.
Yes.
You can call all the sellers on Zillow, all the sellers on Craigslist, all the sellers on any FSBO site on the internet for free with a phone and time. When you talk about direct mail from a mailing house or whatever, you're going to pay for that stuff. But you don't have to do much of it. So one of Pete's sayings, we talk about Pete, use what you have to get what you need to get what you want. Okay. Just do it. But do it. Do something today. If you don't have a dime in your pocket, pick up the phone and call a seller.
That's a good point you're making, that to reiterate, I'm definitely not talking about money. I'm talking about consistency. So if your marketing channel is free or close to free, just do it consistently enough. If you're going to call sellers on Zillow for free, do it every day, or block time, figure out what's consistent to you, but do it consistently. And I guarantee you, one of those Zillow sellers is going to work something out with you. Yo, and it's always a learning process. So, I either win or I learn, but I never fail.
That's
So every
exactly right.
conversation is adding more value to you as a investor. Most sellers kind of say the same things. After a while, you've talked to enough of them. You only need a handful of objections. You only get to know a handful of objections to kind of work with those sellers. So yeah, consistency is key. Free, paid, whatever. Just do something and do it all the time,
Do
consistently
something
enough.
every day. Do something
Yeah,
what have I done
yeah.
today to buy a house? That's exactly
Yep.
right. Okay, William, thanks so much for being here with us, man. We really appreciate you. I know you're a busy
Yeah,
guy.
thank
You're
you.
heading out to Atlanta
Yeah.
to see Pete. We appreciate all you guys for being here with us today on special edition Goat Talk. But I saw William's post and I had to bring him on here to talk. We love case studies. So, all right, guys, you have a great day. Talk to a seller today. Put out a bandit sign. Mail a card. Do something. Okay. Cheap, expensive, it doesn't matter. Take some action. Buy some houses. Thanks so much, William. And
Thank you.
you guys have a great time there in Atlanta today. All right.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank
All
you.
right. We'll catch y'all next time. Have a good day.